Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the SEO for Mental Health Basic Do-It-Yourself SEO Guide. My name is Aaron Carpenter. I'll be your host today. During the course of the workshop today, I'm going to introduce some fundamentals of SEO, try to get you in a position where you have a basic understanding of what SEO is and how, as a therapist, you can do some SEO on your site. This is kind of helpful in two different ways. One, it can help you hold a professional accountable if you're working with them. So you can kind of think of it like learning a little bit about accounting so that you can make sure your CPA or accountant is doing the books correctly. But it's also helpful for yourself if you want to try out some of these things on your own. I'll be very clear during the workshop when I'm discussing topics that are kind of at your level and things that you can do. And then I'll kind of also draw a fence around what are some of the topics or strategies that you would need a specialist for. So with that, I'm going to get into it. I have a pretty simple deck for this. I do get the question, will the deck be made available? We do have this guide available on the site, and I'll make sure everyone gets a copy of the recording of the workshop, as well as a link to that full in-depth guide. This deck today is just a simplified version of that so that I can field questions and walk you through what this concept is. So if you want to take notes, you can, but this presentation you'll probably get more out of if you kind of minimize all different distractions, close all windows on your computer, take your cell phone, turn it on silent, put it face down. I promise it's worth it. You'll get a lot of really great information, and the things that I'm going to teach you today can directly lead to you getting more clients if you're trying to fill your caseload, or recruit therapists if you're looking to grow your practice in that way. So without further ado, that's it for the preamble. Let's get started. I'd love to have you guys type in the chat where you're all from. I want to know, we have a pretty big outreach to therapists. We've been doing work in the therapist industry for over a decade now. And so I'd love to know when I'm doing these workshops, where you all from? So go ahead and type in chat where you guys are coming from. Cool. So we got Alabama represented. We got Orlando, Florida. Super cool. Iowa. All right. So all across the states, right on. We even get some people internationally to these workshops sometimes from my work on the online counseling directory and the consultations I've been doing. We've worked with therapists in Australia, in Europe, South America, and of course, all over the States and Canada. Cool. All right. So just a quick note about me so that you can get some context if you haven't met me before to where this advice is coming from. My name's Aaron Carpenter. I founded Legendary Line Creative Agency back in 2011. Shortly after founding that agency, we linked up with Joseph Sanek of Practice of the Practice. We did his brand and website and sponsored some of his events and spoke on some of his podcasts. And that's sort of how we broke into the therapist market. That was the introduction. We worked with therapists for a number of years. And then eventually I linked up with Clay Cockrell of Walk and Talk Therapy out of New York City. And we built the online counseling directory together. That was his project, his brainchild. But we partnered together to build that whole thing out. And I've worked on hundreds of therapist websites over the years. So, your industry challenges and how to get your story told in a convincing way through a site is something that I'm very familiar with. So this last year, we launched something called the Private Practice Growth Systems, trademarked. Essentially what I did is I took my business background and I applied it to the therapy industry, knowing everything I know about web design, web development, small business, entrepreneurship, and digital marketing. And we split practices up into 3 stages. Stage 1 typically revolves around websites, branding, getting really the foundations down so that clients and therapists can find you and you can start to grow your practice. Stage 2 revolves a little bit more around lead gen, a little bit more consultation and strategy. And then in that stage, we kind of help you orient yourself on, are you going to grow your practice through hiring therapists? Are you specializing in, like, say, online therapy only or in-session only? And what is starting to identify how you're going to scale? And then in stage 3, we help you scale. So we can help you with recruiting therapists and headhunting the right talent, We can help you with creating a therapist portal on your site where you can have people, if you have like a major group practice, you can have people quickly select the therapist out of the groups and locations that you have. So that's really just kind of a 10,000-foot view of what we do and what this program is. If you're interested in learning more, I will give you information on that. In our pricing, and everything is super transparent and built around the stage that your practice is in, because we know at that stage, what we've put together is super high value and absolutely affordable to you. So today we're going to be focused on stage one. Stage one is basic SEO stuff. It's kind of what happens during and just after when your website is launched. And I'm going to give you some explanations as to what this is. So you guys probably know Inigo Montoya and have all famously heard the line, "You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means." SEO is a pretty broad term. And every time I speak to clients about what SEO is, I get all different kinds of questions, and they're all almost always related to getting clarity around what does SEO even mean. There are three main types. Okay. There's organic search, which I'll show you today. There's paid search, which is paying for each click. And there's on-site and off-site SEO, which is a little bit more technical. Definitely not something we're really going to cover today. That's more of like an SEO specialist's job. But there's a whole set of activities that would be considered SEO and be called optimization. But they're more technical, have to do with either code or page load times or something, which we're not going to cover. We're just going to do the basics today. So we're going to be focused on organic search. So what is organic search? I've got a screenshot here for you of a basic search results page. I'm sure you all have seen this. We're going to be using Google as an example, but Bing and Yahoo follow pretty much the same rules, just as a heads up. Almost always you'll see paid ads, and you know they're ads because they say ad next to them. Then after that, these are called rich snippets, and you've seen these in different forms. One of them that's most popular is the Google My Business, where you see a map and pins and links to websites and directions. The other one that you might see if you're searching for a question would be kind of like that accordion drop down of different answers. And if you click one, it'll take you to the site that supplied that answer. Down here is where we're going to be spending our time in organic results. This is bread and butter for the foundations of your practice being found online by clients or therapists alike. Essentially, what we're after is giving you the tools that you need today. So literally after this workshop, what I give you, you will be able to take and run with, where you can write a page, post it to your site, follow a few simple rules that I give you, and within usually 2 to 4 weeks, Google will pick up that page and start to rank it. And once you rank up here, your sweet spot that you're always, the dream that you're shooting for is like the first 3 positions. They get like 95% of the clicks. Everything else, you can get some clicks, but that's more related to people who are shopping around a lot. So as we all know, new clients, if we're talking about new clients especially, they've probably experienced a crisis event or something like that that sort of triggered them to want to find a therapist. And so they're probably just clicking on the first few, looking for a problem to their immediate, or a solution to their immediate problem, right? Down at the bottom, you'll also see paid ads and then related results. So that's the sort of anatomy of a search results page. So you can do this yourself, but like I said, I'm going to try to draw a pretty distinct fence around what your zone is as a therapist trying to do this on your own versus what a specialist would be required to do. Okay. So SEO Moz is a company that provides tracking service and keyword tools and stuff. It's an industry standard tool for SEO specialists like myself. And they put out this graphic, and I think it's super helpful. The blue stuff is theirs. We've kind of amended it, so we've elaborated on it to give you a little bit more context. But we're going to be spending time here in red, where we're creating keyword optimized pages. But yeah, this is built like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And down at the bottom is like the very most basic thing, what you need to survive, and that's that your website needs to be crawlable by Google. That's usually done by a specialist. Creating compelling content, you may be a great writer, but like copywriters, especially web copywriters, know how to take someone's attention, lead it into the next thought and idea, and drive it towards a call to action. So that's really a copywriter specialty. Same for creating keyword optimized articles, but I will tell you or show you what you can do there. And then you're pretty much looking at an SEO specialist or a designer or developer for the rest of these. Okay, so I show you this so that you can get a sense of the breadth of what actually goes into SEO and how much of it really requires a specialist in order to get it done properly. But there's another side to that coin, and I want to share that with you now. Just because it is this big doesn't mean you need all of these people to rank well. Okay. In most of the cases that I've seen therapists who come to us and ask us about SEO, in most of the cases, they could rank in those 1 to 3 spots on their own for several different phrases. And the reason for that is because most therapists aren't hiring specialists. Okay, so if you do just more than the practice next to you, just a little bit more, and follow some of these rules, you should be able to outrank them. Okay, so it's more about doing more than your competition. And if their competition is doing very, very little, then not that much effort is required. However, if you're up against a big group practice, you may notice when you search for yourself, if like a group practice with multiple locations is outranking you, that might be a little tougher, because usually once they reach that point, the stage 2s and 3s that I described, they're investing a little bit more in SEO. They don't have the time to do this themselves really anymore. So just as a heads up, this is totally doable yourself. So this is my little joke on that. Homer says, "Are you better than me?" And this guy says, "Well, I've never met you, but yeah, I am." You just got to be better than the guy next to you. Okay. So adding a little bit of effort to your site can go a very, very long way. So let's talk about what that would look like. This is my formula for you to create a page that can be very effective on ranking for client searches. So what we typically find, the big ones, is anxiety counseling and depression counseling. So if you offer your services for those things, even if you don't offer it like as a titled service like that, you probably should have a service page on your site that says that, because remember, we're trying to get a page to rank on what a user searches for. So your clients are searching for depression counselor, anxiety counselor, or in this case, couples counseling, right? So here's the formula: your location and then your service. If you follow this formula, you'll match most of the general searches that your clients are searching for, and it writes pretty easily into copy. Okay, so if you're writing it yourself and you're like, if you're experiencing problems or difficulties in your relationship with communication, our Chicago couples counseling service can be right for you. Now, that might read just a little funny to you, but it still reads fine to a user. And that's exactly what Google's looking for when someone types for Chicago couples counseling. Okay, so what I recommend is you just follow this simple formula. That way we kind of do away with all the noise and other tips and tricks and things like that. This is a tried and true thing that you can do. And you can do this for every service that you have. So down here we have examples for a couples counselor specialist: couples counseling, marriage counseling, anxiety, depression, relationship counseling, right? You don't need to go crazy with this. Just do your major ones to start. And we're going to talk about how you can make one page at a time to get these knocked out for yourself and start to rank in Google. So writing the pages, right? What do you need to include? We found over the years that there's a number of things that you need to include. A little bit more background about me. Before I started Legendary Line, I worked for a number of creative agencies. One in particular specialized in SEO. My job was to live in Google Analytics, essentially, and explain to these very big companies what was happening with the numbers as it applied to how their campaign was rolling out. So how were people responding to the newest page that we posted, or that change on the homepage leading to a call to action? Were we getting more through traffic or less, and why? I've been doing this line of work since like 2007, SEO especially, but professionally through Legendary Line since 2011, nonstop. We've always been providing the service. So this is what I found always works. Always include the search phrase in the title. Always include it 2 to 3 times relative to every like 750 words of copy. The reasoning by those last 2 points, or for them, is that Google is going to want to see the topic repeated throughout the content. It's a programmatic way of them to see that this page is very relevant on that thing. But if you do it too much, it's considered keyword stuffing. It's like a SEO specialist trying to do it too hard. and you could get penalized for that. If you don't do it enough, you won't get enough traction on that keyword phrase. So this is kind of a sweet spot to follow. It's not an exact rule. It's more of a rule of measure or a rule of thumb. Remember, you're always trying to write these pages to get your client to take the first step. Usually that's the best way to kick off a conversation with you, or where you feel most comfortable kicking off conversations with clients. So this could be a 15-minute introduction phone call, not a full intake, right? Just an intro in call to be like, hey, who are you? What are you experiencing? Am I the right fit for you? Are you the right fit for me? It could be filling out a short form. It could be calling a phone number instead of scheduling like a 15-minute call, for instance. If you're wondering which is the most effective, we do find that scheduling calls seems to be the most effective, but if you deal in crisis type of counseling, then obviously having a phone number available is nice. Our sort of advice around that, though, is that if you're doing crisis type counseling and you're using a phone number as your primary call to action, have someone available to answer the phone. Kind of seems like a no-brainer, but like you might as well schedule the call then, because at least you're giving them the satisfaction of, I have a time locked down to talk to somebody about this and I can get my thoughts together, right? So how do you write them? Those are the rules of what you need to include, but how do you write them? I know that writing, especially if it's not your thing, can feel kind of difficult. You're staring at a blank page and you're like, I don't even know what to put down here. I don't do this activity regularly. That's fine. We've put together this formula for you to make things just a little bit easier. So introduce it, tell them what you're going to tell them, right? What is this service? Who is it primarily for? Then in the main body of the content, explain what they can expect from the service and think about the common objections that they typically give you when you're having your first conversations with them. So how quick can you fix this? Or how many times am I going to meet per month? Or whatever those things are, start to explain those. Help the client kind of understand what your approach to therapy is and what they can expect in the sessions from you. And think about the reasons why they've said no before and try to address them up front. Take away their reasons to say no once they've landed on this page, so they're more likely to take that step to the first call to action. And then don't forget to ask, right? Like, I know sales can feel kind of icky sometimes, but it's absolutely necessary. You're the professional in the situation. They've reached out to you and they're on your site and they need couples counseling in this case. At the end of your content, and sometimes in the beginning too, tell them, hey, we've been doing this for X number of years. We love what we do. We would love to have a 15-minute conversation with you to explore how we might be able to best help you, right? Ask for the sale, ask for the first step. Don't leave that part out because that's the biggest thing that can hurt your conversion rate on that page. That's the biggest thing that can hurt someone feeling like they know which step to take next. All right, so you have the tools of kind of what to include, how to kind of write out those pages. So now you got to build it. And I don't know how many web developers I have in here, but at this point, I'd like to ask on a scale of 1 to 10, no judgment, scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, man, I don't even have my login to my site, and 10 being like, I built my own site. Let me see some 1s to 10s in the chat on where you guys are at with your website management. Okay, got a 6, cool, 3, okay, 7, cool. I got one person here is like, you manage my site. Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. So 10, right? Okay, 6, cool. Okay, so we're a little all over the board. I appreciate you letting me know because I want to kind of make sure I'm framing my answers to everybody. So you don't need to know any code to do what I'm about to describe. You just need to log into your site. And I know most websites these days are built on WordPress. It's a very common content management system, like a software to build your site in. Most developers do that because it's really easy for us to hand over the keys to the client so that they can self-manage, but we can still be on call. So a lot of my examples are going to use WordPress, okay? If you're not using WordPress, that's okay. Everything I've arranged in here still applies to all other platforms like Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, whatever, therapy sites, whatever it is that you've got, this will work, okay? All you need is a login and the ability to be able to edit or create a page. That's all you need to do. So when you go to build the pages, here's a little blueprint that we put together for our clients. This is kind of the anatomy of what should go on a landing page. So when someone's under services and clicks Chicago couples counseling, this is sort of the format of what they would see. Should start or have near the top a featured image, and I'll give you some resources where you can go get some images that you're allowed to use. You should have that call to action. What's the next step? Call us or schedule a 15-minute, whatever that is, with our client intake coordinator, right? Then you're going to include that SEO phrase for this page on the page, add your content, conclude with a call to action, and I'll talk about SEO links in just a second. So this is kind of the anatomy of a page, okay? For WordPress, there is a plugin that we do recommend for newbies that are trying to do this themselves, and that's Yoast SEO. It's one of the most popular ones. It is free. They do have a paid version. You might see this 99 down here, and it comes with some extra cool features for that, but you can use the free version. That's totally fine. And then we're just including WordPress here so that you can tell that this is a plugin for that. Most other platforms like Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, all those, they will still have the same stuff. So when I'm showing you those screenshots of where to add these things, just take note of the term that I'm talking about, title, meta description, I'll point those out. All of those platforms will have the same thing, okay? It's worth pointing out WordPress doesn't have that out of the box, which is why we showed you this. So getting images. You may know of these resources, but if you don't, I definitely think it's a good idea to write them down. In the creative industry, there are two types of images, really. There are images that are Creative Commons, no attribution required. Okay, so that means that a photographer has put that online under that license to be used commercially, privately, however you like. There are other images which are attribution required. They're free for use, but you have to attribute the artist. And then there are licensed images. Those would be like iStock and things like that. You can use licensed images, that's fine. But the one thing that I want to stress here is never go to Google Images, find something, save it, and use it on your site. It's a really bad idea. Some artists have signed subscriptions with really cutthroat legal teams to go headhunt websites that have done that, and they'll slap you with some pretty nasty fees. I had a client one time that did that themselves, and they got like a $2,000 fee for using an image, even though they took it down right away after getting the notice. They still went after them for using it for the length of that year. So these two resources are safe. Okay, you can pull anything from here, and you can search for all different kinds of stuff, and it's in here. These are great for just general images. If you need something real specific, then you might be looking at a licensed image. Because they're paid, they tend to have like bigger, more specific libraries. So here's a snapshot of WordPress using the Gutenberg editor, the most recent one. And I've added an image in here for Chicago's couple counseling. When I click on that image off to the right, you will see this alt text here. This is what I'm talking about for adding the information to the image and why the image is important. Google will crawl the page and see that this image is relevant to Google, Chicago's couples counseling. Okay, it doesn't know that unless you add this. Google doesn't really read images to know what they are. They still kind of leave it up to web developers or a website owner to tell Google what this image is related to. Okay, so it's a ranking factor. It's a smaller one, but it's that much more, like I said, that you could be doing for this page that your competition might not be doing. And after you have the page built, you're going to add it to your main navigation. Here I am in WordPress under Appearance Menus. This is where you would grab like your main menu or header menu, take the page from here, click the button, click Add to Menu. Do you still want these pages linked in a main navigation or a footer navigation if you're uncomfortable putting like Chicago's couples counseling up there? Sometimes you can add it to the footer as like an SEO link. Now, I want to kind of pause here, and actually I want to go back briefly to our SEO page. So why am I calling these landing pages? If we do a good job, then let's say in the first result here, you come up for Chicago couples counseling. If I click this, I'm going to land on that page that you wrote. That's the first thing that I'll see. Okay, so that's why I'm calling them landing pages. And that's why I'm saying it's so important to include the call to action, address exactly just this thing, this search phrase. They will still be able to navigate around your site, but typically users are going to see, they're going to take like 1 to 2 seconds and go, am I in the right place? Does this solve my problem? Do I find it credible? all of that in like 1 to 2 seconds. And if you pass that check and you have a request to take the next step and you're clear about that, they're most likely to take that step. Okay. So that covers adding the alt tags, that covers adding it to main navigation. This is the last bit here in building the pages. This is for, I wrote for advanced nerds. It expedites search indexing. If you have some technical skills, I would say, I know this is all relative, but if you answered like a 7 or above, this is probably your ballpark. You would go to Google Search Console. You have to add your site to it, and it does kind of walk you through it, but you need to be kind of savvy with web development a little bit to like know how to do things with your domain name. Once you get this set up, every time you add a page, you can just paste that page into your Search Console dashboard. And that's kind of a flag to Google saying, hey, Google, I just posted a new page. I would like to be expedited in the queue for you to search, for you to crawl this and add this to your search index. Okay. I just got a question. Can I show you how to do this? I may run a workshop on that, but it's not like a super quick thing. Basically, if you go there, like if you click start now on this page, it will walk you through it. My advice there is if you're interested in having this part of your program, this might be the ballpark where you need to hire a specialist, because while I could show you how to do it, there's so much more that the Google Search Console is used for, and this type of activity is probably best left up to a professional. Okay. So hot seat time. This is my favorite part. I've been doing this a long time, like I said, and one of my favorite things as a presenter is just to show, not just tell. So first couple of people that drop links, and I already got one, I'm going to take a look at the site. I'm going to tell you what I see and give you a list of recommendations straight from the professional. So whoever can type really quick, go fast, 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 fast. Here we go. Okay, cool. I might get to 3. We'll see. And if you don't, if I don't get to your project today, by the way, I'm running these workshops once a month. I'm going to be doing several different workshops per month, but the SEO one I know is really popular one. So I'm going to try to get that in once per month. So you can feel free to come back. And when I'm getting ready to hot seat time, get ready and let me know. But yeah, let's dive into some of these. So I'm just going to go with the very first one. I feel like Garrett Counseling is the first one. I feel like they already had that ready. And that's the first time that I said you should be ready to rock and roll. Okay. Cool. So we got Garrett Counseling. I'm going to do a little bit of design and a little bit of SEO stuff while I'm here. So the first thing that I see, and when I'm talking about the blink test, is that you guys provide counseling services for children, adults, and families. You have a strong call to action to call today. If I click this, this is going to take me to contact us. Oh, okay, cool. So just pop up to call. Okay. All that works. Super cool. Let's take a look at the services. Okay. This is a super common thing that I see, and my advice is going to be the same as the last workshop. So this is Ashley. Okay, so Ashley, what I'm seeing right away is that you're very clear about children, adult, and family counseling. But these are really your services. You deal with aging concerns, divorce issues, eating disorders, mood disorders. Okay. What I would recommend is that you take each one of these major services. So aging concerns, divorce issues, eating disorders. Sure. Okay. So a couple of different things. The first one is these aren't typically, in my experience, what people would search for if they're looking for a solution. So these are your services. This is great. But what I would probably do is search for something like divorce counseling. So let's do that. I'm doing this straight in Google just to see what Google types up. Okay. So divorce counseling near me, Christian divorce counseling near me. If you're Christian specific, that might be a better page. The more specific you can get, kind of the less search volume that you get, because it's specific, so less people search for it, but the easier it is to rank because you're also decreasing the competition looking for that phrase. So for those of you that focus on faith-based counseling, that's a really great way to rank even easier by adding that to that formula of the phrase, the location, and then the service. So it could be Chicago Christian divorce counseling, right? So what I'd recommend though is when we're looking back at these pages, coming back here to your services, I think you need to identify your main services and think about what your clients are searching for. So eating disorders, maybe counseling for eating or counseling for eating disorders, weight loss counseling, something along those lines would be a good service page. If you're unsure, search for those things yourself, see what results come up, right? And if that looks like that's what you want to rank on, then create the page using that with the formula that I gave you. But the problem here is that Google just sees a bulleted list, not a page to rank. Okay, so if we go to children, for instance, or I have it pulled up here already, children and teens. This is its own page. So now Google has a link to index in the search results. That's huge. But I'd love to see this be like children and teen counseling, because children and teens could mean a lot of different things, right? A lot of different reasons why people would search for children and teens something. But if you say children and teen counseling, or even better yet, if you have teen counseling and counseling for children, have individual pages for those things, you'll have a lot more for Google to sink its teeth into on specific services you want to be found on. So my recommendation would be to take our services, come up with like your top services, use the formula that I gave you, create those pages and make them a submenu under our services. Okay, you can still keep all this stuff. You don't have to change any of this, but doing that and creating those pages and hanging them off your site that way will give you that much more ability to rank on each one of those phrases for each of those pages. Cool. Ashley, do you have any follow-up questions to what I just described to you? You're very welcome. Okay, cool. All right, let's keep cruising. The next one I have in chat is from Nancy. It's a Global Citizen Therapy. Okay, cool. I have a video background right away. I know that you do therapy for women. I'm seeing multicultural women too. Excellent. You do have great calls to action here. This is textbook, so schedule an appointment. By the way, I love on the last example and this example that I have one strong call to action, right? You're not asking me to do multiple things, just one. I don't have to make a decision. I'm going to schedule an appointment if I'm interested. This comes right to your scheduler. Super cool. This goes to the same place. Excellent. Yeah, whoever set this up for you, or if you did this yourself, very good job. This is exactly what I would expect to see. Let's look at services. Okay, so you have therapy, brain spotting, coaching, and podcasts. I'm going to do something real geeky here, one sec. Okay. What I was doing there was just looking at the source code. That one page load time, you may have noticed, it took kind of a little while. And that's something where if that happens frequently with your site, you might want to talk to a specialist about that. It's very, very important to Google when it crawls your site to see how quickly everything loads. Google's not interested in, I didn't mention this yet, so let me kind of give you an idea of where Google's coming from. Obviously there's search engine, but like what's the point for them? They want to make sure that every result that a user clicks on is hyper relevant to whatever they just searched for and loads very quickly. That's basically it, okay? They want to do that because they want people coming back to their search engine. They want to be the household phrase, Google it. And the only way they're going to do that is if they accomplish those two goals. The other reason why they want to do that and be that household name is because they make their money off of that advertising revenue and tertiary services, but mainly those ads, right? So they need people coming back and clicking on those ads potentially as well. So page load times are a really, really, really big deal. It's like the biggest thing that a SEO specialist can do outside of getting you the fundamentals and creating these service pages like I talked about. So you might want to look into that. But yeah, okay, so we have online therapy. That's also the name here. That's the title. Okay, I'm just doing a search right now and I'm noticing online therapy isn't mentioned again in the content. That's definitely a place that you could improve this page if you want to rank on online therapy. And now I'm looking at the source code. This is just a geeky thing, but here's my alt tag, or excuse me, that's alt loading, lazy. I don't have an alt tag in here. So where I showed you the alt tag in WordPress or the equivalent for this project, you could add an alt tag for online counseling here for this image as well. Now, or online therapy, excuse me. Now, the other thing that I might mention here is that if you're doing online therapy, professional support from anywhere in the world. Okay, so just a point of order here. If you're providing therapy like many therapists do in a specific state, that's where I would recommend adding the state, the geolocal here. Super helpful to let Google know that you're practicing in that area, right? Because then that just kind of narrows it down. Like I said, again, not everybody's trying to rank on Florida online therapy or online therapy in Florida. So if you add that, you can kind of nix the other 48 states of competition and make it that much easier for yourself to rank. Yeah, but otherwise, I'd say in terms of design and the different things that I'm seeing, hey, look, we got a online therapy directory member right on. In terms of everything else I'm seeing, really, really nice job. Those would be my first points that I would say, looking at this in terms of SEO. Do you have any follow-up questions on that one, Nancy? Hey, you're super welcome. Let's do some more. This is fun. So the next one I have is from Brittany, by Young Therapy. By the way, while this is loading, I do want to mention that if you all don't have a Google My Business listing for your practice, it's quite easy to set up. It is also relevant to SEO. That's one of those more technical, like off-site SEO things that I was talking about. But just having a listing is a really big deal. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go to just search for Google My Business. I'm going to pull it up over here. Click on the profile, click Manage Now. It will walk you through it. Okay, it's not super difficult. They verify one of two ways. They either call like a unique number if they can verify that, or they'll send you a postcard with a PIN. And when you get that in the mail, you'll come back here and type that in, and that will give you ownership over your location, your practice name, and your business. For those of you that since the era of Corona and online therapy really took off, if you're practicing from home or a home office or something and you're uncomfortable giving your location, that's okay. You don't have to add a business address here. I think they require an address so that you can confirm it, but you don't have to make it public information. You can just do like an area of operation. So you can just do like the whole state or something for where you provide services, but you don't have to actually add your home address. Still super critical for you to have that though, because that's one way Google can take your domain name, your website address, which you will add to your business listing, and know where you're from. Like in this case, electrician in Detroit, right? So if this person has their website linked to this, Google knows for sure that's where they're located. It doesn't have to try to figure that out through your site, okay? All right, Brittany, we got an LMFT, excellent. Okay, and a certified sex therapist, cool. So, and again, you guys are doing great, man. You guys are like batting 1,000 for the strong calls to action. I love it. Okay, so for therapy, this is really, really good. So we have individual, couples, sex, and telehealth therapy. I do have those here. And this is a good example of if you have that business listing, like I just said, you don't need to include, where are you located here? Georgia. So you wouldn't need to include Georgia teletherapy, Georgia sex therapy. You can still, and that will make it hyper relevant for that area, but you don't have to. Google will know where you're coming from, okay? So here's where I feel like you can best improve, Brittany. I love that you have these pages set up, but it just looks like I'm really missing the content. You know, if I search for teletherapy as a client, what do you think my primary questions are going to be? They're probably going to be things. Now I'm in, drafting a little bit on experience here, but they're probably going to be things like, does teletherapy work? Is it as effective as in-person therapy? What kind of equipment do I need? How often do I meet with my therapist? Can scheduling be flexible? Because if I'm interested in telehealth or teletherapy, traditionally, before it really took off with Corona, the reasoning was they were a high achiever, business professional, frequent traveler type of a thing, and they couldn't continue to stay in town, or they couldn't keep a regular schedule because their schedule was too demanding, but they still were interested in working on their relationship for themselves, right? So I think you need content here for two reasons. One, you need to answer those questions for a client, which is really important. But two, this is not near enough content for Google to find you relevant on teletherapy. You need to tell them more. You need to repeat this several times throughout the content. You could have a call to action to request the consultation above it and below it, but it's missing all of that content. And one of the other things to consider is Google as a operation is, all things being equal, going to give more consideration to pages that have been around longer. Seniority matters, right? It's easier to create a page yesterday than it was to have it have been created 5 years ago. They're going to give you more authority or weight if you have more content on the page. Generally speaking, the more content, the better, but there is a diminishing return. And that's why I gave you like the 750 words is kind of like a minimum effort sweet spot. If you're interested in learning more about that stuff, you can go check out Neil Patel's stuff. This is Neil Patel. This guy is super savvy on SEO stuff. He does give away free advice, but all of his articles and things like that under training and tools, they're usually very short sentences. They're very, very, very long. They include a lot of images, and he is dominating like SEO stuff for agency related things. But the formula is there. It works. Okay. So you got to have the content. If there's no content there, there's nothing for Google to sink its teeth into. Otherwise, though, I think your infrastructure is all great. I think all of this checks out. And once you add the content using that formula that I gave you, I think you'll be in a much better spot. I'm going to go ahead and just check this out. So one of the things you can do to look for yourself, give you guys a little cool little tip and trick here. Just a second. So we're searching for sex therapy, and we're Marietta, Georgia. Okay. So if I search for, when you see me doing this, by the way, I'm going into an incognito window. It just kind of makes my previous search history not take into account, but it still knows I'm talking to you from Charleston, South Carolina right now. It still knows I'm in Charleston. Okay. So it's not totally accurate. It's more accurate if you do it yourself. But if I search for, so we were on Be Young Therapy. Okay, cool. So I'm looking for Be Young Therapy. So I wasn't going to be that surprised if I saw you on the first page, because you do have a page on the thing, right? So you're doing a lot of the things right, but I think you just don't have enough content. That would be my first guess. Now, obviously, ThriveWorks has this. Let's take a look at the top result. This is, by the way, this will help confirm a lot of the things I was talking about. So the top result for that search result was ThriveWorks, where they have Marietta Counseling, and then they have Marietta Sex Therapy. So this is basically a sub page of this page. Okay, right away, sexual issues and sex disorder therapy counselors in Marietta, Georgia. There's that geolocal I was talking about they're including, right? And they have what they're doing in the title. And then if I look at sex therapy, look at how many times sex, sexual orientation, sexual addiction, intimacy, therapist, sex therapists. See the repetition? So you just have to kind of write around that repetition, but this is what Google finds relevant on that because it's all over the page, right? And if this didn't have all of this content, like if all of that was gone and it just had this and maybe a little snippet there, I can pretty much guarantee you this page will not rank on this. Okay. That's how important that is. So yeah, getting back to this one, I think you just add that content like I described. This sex therapy one looks like it has a fair amount of content, but I would reapply those rules that I was talking about. Just reevaluate this content, make sure it's long enough and that it repeats the content like or the search phrase like I said. I think you'll be in a really good spot. That was from Brittany. Any follow-up questions on that one, Brittany? We're doing pretty good. I got about 15 minutes left, so I want to continue here. Oh, and I see Nancy had a couple of questions here. Do I have experience with bulk locations on Google Business? A bit, but personally, I don't do Google My Business like optimizations. We have people that we could refer you to, but that's kind of a specialty in and of its own. usually falls in the arena of like social specialists who do like management of all of those social channels up to and including like Google My Business channels and optimization and stuff. But you also asked if you had an address at the bottom of the site. You don't need locations in the landing page titles. Not exactly. I was talking about with Google My Business, when you have it set for a location and that is 100% correlated to a website domain name, that is an absolute way for Google to rely on where you're located. Otherwise, they're just going to look at your site and infer, and that's going to be a bot, not a person doing that, like a computer program. So it's fallible. Okay. If you add it to your footer, that's a pretty great way for them, like a place for them to look to find that and stuff. If you add it throughout your content, that's better. Having it in the Google My Business listing is best. Okay. And then Brittany just following up she says, I have a question about adding tabs for product sells. I'm looking to sell a card deck I produced. Is it better to buy a new domain around the product or add it to your site? Quick, simple answer is it's better to add to your site. Okay. The more links that your website has internally and externally, so pages on your site and links within your site pointing to other pages, the more weighted your site is, right? Because that's stuff you had to create. So Google will give you more authority and credibility that way. If you buy a brand new domain name, it's a new domain name, doesn't have any pages associated with it. So even if the domain name has your search phrase in it, it's really lacking much more than what your current website already has. Okay, cool. That was super fun. Thank you so much for everyone for volunteering. I am excited to have those of you that want to do another hot seat come back to the next webinar. So definitely check out that follow-up email that I set up so that you can, perhaps do a hot seat. But yeah, it's super great that all of you are so willing to volunteer, and I'm happy to do those every time. Little point of order on the emails too, you may have noticed, we are not going to spam you with those emails. Okay. So if you come and you attend these, I really appreciate you being here because it's so much fun to work with you and learn more about your businesses, but also to be able to give you this up front so you can take it and run with it. Yeah, I'm only ever going to send an email for an event and it'll have a registration link to come to one of these workshops. We're not going to do anything else. You guys know who I am and what I do, and I trust that if you trust me and you need my services, you'll reach out to me. So that's how we like to handle that. So on that note, just as a reminder, this is the private practice growth system. Your practice fits in here somewhere. Okay. I've architected this to where it covers all practices, but there is a place or a stage which you're currently in. And we're used to helping practices at all stages. I have group practices in California, in Chicago, in New York, different places that have multiple locations with teams at each location, all the way down to a therapist just leaving a practice, striking out on their own, asking us to do a logo and a website presence for them. And we walk you through everything, okay? We make it minimal requirement from you in terms of like what we need from you. And we usually cover those in weekly meetings, half hour to an hour for your project, where we have questions to ask to help start to understand what is your personality, approach to therapy, who do you do work with, so that we can kind of craft that experience that really tailors to them and makes it easier for them to trust you and take that first step. And that's true now of clients, like filling caseload, but also therapists. If you're striking on your own, you might not be totally concerned about that yet, but recruiting therapists is kind of difficult right now because the demand is so high. A lot of people are striking out on their own in stage one. And, people just can't get through school fast enough to pick up all the demand. So that's another place that we can help you if you're looking to grow your practice. So with that, my name's Aaron Carpenter. I had a ton of fun with you guys today, looking through the projects and giving you these tools. I'd love for you now to actually commit to doing at least one page, because I got to tell you, if you sit down and write one of those pages with the formula that I described, it should only really take you an hour, maybe two with coffee. So maybe like block it out in your calendar tomorrow morning, right? Or at some point this week, write it out, publish it to your site. And I did cover this, but it takes usually 2 to 3 weeks for Google to recrawl your site, index it into the search results. But it's such a cool feeling when you spent just a couple of hours of work and now you rank on that search phrase in your area and you get your first call. Seeing yourself rank is really cool, but getting your first call off that page is super cool for your practice. You know it works, and you can do this yourself. Okay. If you want to get more out of it, you can reach out to a professional. We'd love to help. Listen, that's my time. Thank you for having me and for joining me today. I'd love to see you back again for one of our other workshops. I'll leave you with that. Until next time, I'm Aaron Carpenter. Have a great week, everyone.